Cinematic Universe movies. Fewer in recent years, but I don't know if I maybe actively consider myself, but I definitely once upon a time did consider myself a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan. But looking currently, and if you pay any sort of attention to box office returns or anything like that, and maybe even if you don't, I think there's been some more mainstream news articles and stuff about this, but Fantastic Four First Steps is not performing well at the box office at the moment. Currently, the domestic gross sits at $240.64 million. And it looks like the movie might just about settle in below $500 million between domestic and international markets, which will likely be about $100 million less than what Superman will end up with. And this is following the Thunderbolts, which underperformed at the box office, and Captain America Brave New World, which underperformed at the box office, and The Marvels, which bombed at the box office. And there has been a number of missteps now in recent years in this most recent Phase 5 that has almost certainly led to questions being asked behind closed doors. And I kind of wanted to just maybe give my thoughts on this, my opinion on why this might be, and maybe what Disney might do, what they could do, and what I think they will do. And this is some of this I'll be using external data, and a lot of it will be my own opinions and thoughts. And as somebody who used to be a diehard MCU fan and kind of now couldn't really care less, to be honest. I still haven't seen Fantastic Four. I've not seen Thunderbolts. I watched Captain America Brave New World and didn't care for it. So, alright. So, I think we gotta go back to the beginning to talk about why things are not doing well now. And a very common sentiment that I see on the internet is people saying like, well, Endgame happened, and for a lot of people, Endgame was their jumping off point. And I do think that there is some merit to that to a degree, but I think that actually kind of glosses over what the actual issue is. So if we go look at Phase 1, we have 6 films: Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and then the first Avengers film. That's a 4-year window with 6 movies. So we have 1 character, 2 characters, 3 characters, 4 characters, and then the team-up film, and we get a sequel, Iron Man, then Iron Man 2, that sequel 2 years apart. And that's a really self-contained little boombox right there. You have a fairly small scope. You're focusing on building up these core pillar characters, Iron Man and Captain America especially, who are Avengers throughout this entire three-phase arc. Then you get into phase 2, Iron Man 3. So within your first 7 movies, Iron Man has 3 movies. Thor: The Dark World, Thor gets his 2nd movie. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America gets his 2nd movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, then you get Avengers: Age of Ultron, your 2nd team-up film, and now Ant-Man. So going into the first Avengers movies, you'd been introduced to 4 characters. Coming into the 2nd Avengers movie, we add the Guardians of the Galaxy. Then we bring in Ant-Man, so that's 6 characters. Maybe if you want to count Bucky Barnes, that's like 7 characters, but really we still have a very small cast. And this cast is getting a quite focused spotlight. You know, Iron Man's had 3 movies, Thor's had 2 movies, Captain America's had 2 movies, Ant-Man gets introduced. Now we come into phase 3, Captain America: Civil War. Now this isn't really a Captain America movie, it's an overall team-up film, but let's fudge the numbers and say that this is the 3rd movie now for Captain America. And we're still at our 7 character / group number. Although, we've also added Spider-Man as well, who will be a major player there. Now we go into Doctor Strange, so we're up to like 8 or 9 characters now. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, that's a return to a pre-existing character, still at 8 or 9, whatever it is. Then we get Spider-Man Homecoming. We've already been introduced to Spider-Man, now he gets his standalone film. Thor Ragnarok, Thor gets his 3rd movie. Black Panther. Alright, we have another character now, so now we're like 9 or 10 characters. Then we get Avengers Infinity War. Alright. Another Avengers movie, another team-up movie, but we have a pretty good idea of all of our characters are. They've all had a very strong spotlight, especially our pillar characters, the main foundational characters of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Ant-Man the Wasp, sequel to an Ant-Man movie. Captain Marvel, so here's our 10th or 11th character. Then we go Avengers Endgame. Boom, that's the big blow-up moment. And then Spider-Man Far From Home, our 2nd Spider-Man outing. So that's your very successful Infinity Saga phases 1 through 3 grouping there. Those are the movies that built the foundations and that turned the MCU into the powerhouse it is today. Now, I want to contrast that now with what we're dealing with coming into the modern day, and when Marvel's starting to become less and less important at the box office and culturally. We get Black Widow to start off phase 4, which is sort of tumultuous and COVID and all that other stuff. But this is a character we already know and understand. We've seen Black Widow, it's sort of a prequel movie, so that's okay. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Okay, now we have a new character. And then Eternals, we have another new group, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, back-to-back introductions. Then we get Spider-Man movie, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, Black Panther 2. Although, because of the passing of Chadwick Boseman, we have a new Black Panther. But notably in phase 4, no Avengers movies, no team-up movies. Phase 1 had a team-up movie. Phase 2 had a team-up movie. Phase 3 had 2 team-up movies. Phase 4, no team-up movie. Phase 5, we have Ant-Man 3, which is setting up King in this thing, which gets abandoned. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, okay, this is a character we're already familiar with. The Marvels, new characters. Deadpool and Wolverine, new characters. Because previous to this, Deadpool was a Sony character, and so was Wolverine. Captain America, Brave New World, sort of new characters in a way. Thunderbolts, new characters. Fantastic Four First Steps, new characters. And then we have coming up at the end of next year, almost a year break, Avengers Doomsday. So I just want to illustrate the point looking at Phase 1 here. Just in Phase 1, we'll just look at the first 10 movies. Between Avengers 1 and Avengers 2, 11 movies. We introduce Iron Man, and over the course of those 11 movies, he gets 3 total films, introduction and 2 sequels. Over those 11 movies, Thor gets a movie and a sequel, Captain America gets a movie and a sequel, and we get the team-up film, and we get now the introduction of the Guardians, and that's in between 2 team-up films, 2 Avengers films, so then we get all that compact into that. Since Avengers Endgame, we have been introduced to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters. Since the end of Avengers Endgame, none of those characters have been given a sequel. Shang-Chi came out in 2021, had a very positive reaction. Still no sequel on the horizon. Eternals, we know that there's not going to be a sequel for Eternals. The Marvels, we're not getting a sequel there. And we're just kind of looking here, and it feels like these Phase 4 movies, these Phase 5 movies, just don't really matter. They didn't build anything. And like looking, not having any of those team-up films, because even these characters are interacting with each other at all. And there's if you ask somebody who's the Avengers, they'd immediately tell you, I'm sure even just a layperson on the street, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, they'd list off the characters. But after them being gone, you ask somebody who's the Avengers right now, they'd be like, oh well, okay, we have Sam Wilson, he's in there, right? Okay, maybe Thor's still around, I guess. Guardians of the Galaxy are still around, I guess. Maybe Shang-Chi's in it. Maybe Doctor Strange. Maybe Spider-Man. The new Black Panther's in there. And Captain Marvel is in there. And maybe, I can't think of her name, but the other character from the Marvels. Ant-Man's in there. Is Deadpool in there? Is Wolverine in there? Maybe, who knows? Are the Thunderbolts going to be in there? Are the Fantastic Four going to be in there? You know what I mean? It's just not a cohesive group. And these characters haven't interacted with each other. It's because even up through Endgame, you had Civil War, which had all the characters interacting. Tony Stark was in Spider-Man Homecoming, and Hulk was in Thor Ragnarok, and Black Panther had characters you'd seen from other films, and you know what I'm saying, all these other movies, even outside the Avengers movies, these characters were interacting. But it feels like as soon as Endgame happened, now it's just sort of everyone's off in their own little worlds, and people, the reason that people cared about Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor is because they were given the spotlight. They got multiple sequels. They appeared in other people's movies. So when I see people make this argument oh, well, none of these new characters are as good. It's like, well, if Iron Man 1 came out in 2008, and then he didn't get his sequel until 6-7 years later, or not at all. Like, you look at some of these new characters not getting their sequels at all. Like, okay, Doctor Strange 2 is 5 years. It was 2 years to Iron Man 2. It was 5 years to Iron Man 3. So Iron Man got 3 movies in the time it took Doctor Strange to get 2. It's been 4 years that Shang-Chi come out, no sequel. Black Panther, it took 4 years for that sequel to come out. You know what I'm saying? It's just Captain America 1 came out in 2011, Captain America 2 came out in 2014, Captain America 3 came out in 2016. That's a 5-year window. 3 Captain America movies. You still have characters not getting any sequels, or you know what I mean? It's just people cared about those characters because they were given the spotlight, but it feels like right now, no characters being given the spotlight, no characters being elevated above the rest of the pack. And I feel like what they need to do, if they want things to be successful, is just be like, okay, this character, whether it's Doctor Strange, whether it's whoever they want to pick, Shang-Chi, Marvel needs to pick that character and say, this is the new face of this franchise, and we're gonna, push everything behind them. We're gonna give them strap the rocket to them and send them up to the moon, because that's what they did with Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, and it feels like they've just been sort of spinning their wheels, or hoping something would sort of pan out organically, but with things like this, I don't think you can wait on that. And I think as well as there's been so many movies with no or low stakes, and there's been no real point on the horizon we were working towards. Black Widow was a prequel film. Shang-Chi felt like a self-contained story outside of the overarching storyline. It didn't build up towards a big bad. Eternals, again, prequel, self-contained story. Spider-Man No Way Home, it felt like a self-contained story, and no big bad evil on the horizon, no Doctor Doom, no whatever. Like, you're sitting around like, we just got done with Thanos, who's the next Thanos, who's the next, and they're not coming. And then Love and Thunder was awful, Quantumania was awful, and the only movies that are doing well at the box office, Deadpool and Wolverine, which are, I honestly think your average person does not associate Deadpool or Wolverine with the MCU. I think they sort of view it as a separate thing. And then Spider-Man, they don't have the full rights to that character, and those are the only 2 movies like actually performing really well at the box office because of this weird sort of shotgun approach it feels like they're doing at the moment, where there's no real clear goal in sight. They look at Fantastic Four with Galactus, and Galactus could have been a big bad guy at the end of a phase. Like phase 4 should have introduced Galactus early, and then phase 5, and then phase 6, it should have been them fighting Galactus, just like Thanos, and then you do another 3-phase arc with Doctor Doom at the end of the phase. I'm just kind of looking at it now, and I'm like, how are they gonna do this? Who are they building towards? Because you look at, like, they've wasted Gore the God Butcher, as well as Christian Bale. Gore the God Butcher could have been a 2-3 movie arc. He could have been like a 1-phase villain, like an entire phase battling Gore the God Butcher. Like, they could have done so many things. And then now it just all sort of reeks of desperation, where you have Doomsday bring back Robert Downey Jr., and there's rumors that they're going to bring back Steve Rogers as well, and they're having Deadpool and Wolverine join the Avengers. I'm just kind of sitting here, and it's like, it feels like they're panicking. that might work once. It might be the Doomsday. They throw all these things, and they bust out the member berries, and they bust out the nostalgia bait, and maybe Avengers Doomsday hits $1 billion and it works. But the problem is you can only do that one time. Because the problem is the audiences right now, especially with the introduction of all these Disney Plus shows, because you're talking about adding new characters. You look at the Disney Plus shows, we've added Agatha Harkness, we've added Moon Knight, we've added She-Hulk, we've added Daredevil, we've added Punisher. So the Disney Plus shows have added all these new characters into the mythos. So now we're sitting at what, like 20, 30 characters maybe after all the Disney Plus shows as well as the movies. And it's all becoming a little bit too much. And, like I said, you can say, oh, remember all this stuff, Chris Evans is back, Jar Jar Jr. is back, and people will go watch that. But you can't do that over and over and over. Eventually people will stop caring. You have to just give them good movies and good stories. Because, Avengers Endgame wasn't giving people nostalgia bait. The original Avengers Endgame giving people nostalgia bait. It was something that was built too organically. And it feels like somewhere along the line they've lost the ability or understanding to organically build something. And it's weird because in my mind it's kind of like, what's changed? And not to mention, okay, let's say Avengers Doomsday, you bring in all these actors and characters back and it makes $1 billion, 1.5 or something. But that budget, it is going to be the most expensive movie ever made. It is very possible that movie is going to cost more than $500 million to make. Between Robert Downey Jr.'s salary, Chris Evans' salary, Ryan Reynolds' salary, everybody else, that movie could easily creep up $500, $600 million plus marketing. Like, you're talking about a movie that might have to make $1.5 billion just to break even, and that is not a sustainable method. That's not sustainable at all, and it feels like they're just throwing gasoline onto this tire fire without any regard for how it's gonna be. Like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are they gonna be making Marvel movies in 2040? If they mismanage this right now, I'm gonna say right now, 2040, no Marvel movies. But if they can thread this needle, I think they could. It's just what they were doing successfully in the beginning, they're not doing successfully now. You look at the demographic issues of the original movies, 2008. That was my first year of high school, coming out of middle school, going into high school. The 2010s, the entire Phase 1 happened while I was in high school. Phase 2, Phase 3, that was me right after high school, working my first jobs, getting girlfriends, going out on my, that. I grew with the series as I matured and grew up. But now we're staring down 2025, we're almost 20 years from the start of this thing. And there's a Gen Z problem. There's this article here. Only 19% of Gen Z considers themselves Marvel fans. 19%. Compare that with 25 to 34, which is your, older Gen Z to younger millennials. That's 30%. But then if you go to 35 to 44, the amount of people concerned as MCU fans jumps up to 40%. So the number of people that consider themselves MCU fans is basically going down by 10% every time you go down an age bracket. And And so if you're, Gen Z or even your older Gen Alpha into like, kids now, like 10-year-olds, things like that, the MCU is not that cool, new, fun thing. It's something that your dad watches. It's something that your dad watches. And when you were a kid, did you want to watch the stuff your dad was watching, or did you think the stuff your dad was watching was lame? Because I'm going to tell you right now, you probably thought it was lame. And that's a demographic issue. They need to find a way to make the MCU cool for young people, for kids. But then the problem becomes, if you're a kid, let's say you're a 14, 15-year-old teenager, you're like, okay, let's give this MCU thing a try. You have like 32 movies to watch, plus a dozen Disney Plus series, and you're gonna be like, why the hell would I do this? And it's such a high barrier to entry. Not to mention, like I said, the budgets, the unsustainability of that. Consider what James Gunn is doing to DC Cinematic Universe now. They're making a Clayface movie for $40 million. Do you think Marvel has the ability to make a movie for $40 million anymore? Their lowest budget, is $180 million these days. It's just so astronomically high. Not to mention their inability to have a completed script by the time they go to shooting. They are currently shooting Avengers Doomsday, and the script is still not finished, which means that so much of the movie is actually being written and done in post-production, and it's just balloons and balloons and balloons budgets. And then you kind of compare that with, we have this huge wave of lower budget original horror films doing massively successful. Sinners is gonna end up at in the top 10 for the year, beating out Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, by the way. Sinners had an amazing run on a pretty small budget. Weapons, another original horror movie, has an extremely strong opening. Right now, what's Weapons sitting at? Where is it? Sorry, I'm just trying to look through. So Weapons had a $22 million second weekend. Okay, so right now Weapons is sitting at a $64 million total. And it had a small budget. What was the budget of Weapons? $38 million. So it's already made about double that. It's it feels like there's a cultural shift happening. Or maybe transitioning. You see, the thing is, I don't even think it's superhero fatigue or comic book movie fatigue, because the Batman did really well. Superman has done well, launching a new universe. Deadpool and Wolverine did well. Spider-Man continues to do well. I think it's MCU fatigue, and then we have this other sort of new exciting thing, these original horror IPs. Late Night with the Devil, recently, which I was very excited about. It feels like there's been a huge horror push recently, and they're not being treated like they were in the 2010s, where it's cheap thrills and midnight movies and bring the teenagers in and all that stuff. Feels like they're actually getting a lot more attention and care, and that might be our sort of next wave. So I don't know, I feel like I sort of rambled maybe a little bit there at the end and lost the plot a little bit, but I really feel like, this Avengers Doomsday thing, if some of these rumors are true, they are pulling the emergency ripcord on their parachute. But the problem is there's only one parachute in that bag. You can only pull that cord one time, and I feel like if they are, then, if they do that, if they bring back Chris Evans, if they bring back all this stuff, and they basically undo all of the consequences from the earlier films, I think we can very safely start the countdown from that moment to the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I don't know, guys. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you agree with what I'm saying, if you disagree with what I'm saying, if you have some other hypotheses that you think might be more a better explanation. But anyways, if you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this every single week. Until next time, bye bye.